We're going to look at three problems here that actually came off of STAR Algebra 1 tests in recent years. Now, these problems involve linear equations with variables on both sides, but they also involve the distributive property. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone here. So this first problem says, what is the solution to, which means solve for x. When it says what is the solution, it means solve for the variable. So we have 34x plus 95 equals 3 times the quantity 14x plus 9. So the left side is okay if we leave it like that. The right side is, we have to use the distributive property. So let's just rewrite this. Left side stays the same. 34x plus 95. Now we're going to distribute the right side. Remember, distribution is whatever is on the outside of the parentheses is multiplied by everything on the inside of the parentheses. So 3 times 14x would be 42x. And then 3 times 9, don't forget there's that plus sign there, so you can say plus 3 times 9 plus 27. Okay, now to solve for the variable, we want to get all the variables on one side and all the numbers on the other side. And it doesn't matter which direction you go. I like to take the smaller of the number and subtract it from the bigger. So you can see that 34x here is smaller than 42x. So I'm going to subtract 34x from both sides using the subtraction property of equality. So if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So 34x minus 34x is 0. 42x minus 34x is 8x. Okay, now we still have the 95, which just moves down, and the 27, which just moves down. So 95 is equal to 8x plus 27. Now we want to get all the numbers to the other side, so we subtract 27 from both sides. 27 minus 27 is 0. 95 minus 27 is 68. And then we just bring the 8x down and, of course, the equal sign. So 8x is equal to 68. We're almost there. Now we want to get the x all by itself, but because the 8 is a multiplier of it, we have to divide by that same number. So we divide by 8. And if I divide one side by 8, I have to divide the other side by 8. Because 8 divided by 8 is 1. So we get 1x. You don't have to write the 1. And if it's a 1, you don't have to write it in front of a variable. So we get x. And then 68 divided by 8, it ends up being 8.5. So there, we've solved. It says, what is the solution? We've solved it. X is equal to 8.5. Now let's look at the next example. This one's multiple choice. That first one was griddable, which means you'd have to fill in the grid at 8.5. And you'll have plenty of practice on how to do that. This one's multiple choice. What value of n makes the equation true? That's just another way of saying solve for n. Okay, so now you notice on this side, both sides have distributions, so we're going to have to be careful here. Okay, so the first, 4 times 0.5, n is 2n. And then 4 times negative 3, don't forget that negative sign in front of the 3. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. It's equal to n, it just comes from there, minus 0.25 times 12. When you're subtracting like that, you can say that's the same as a negative 0.25 times 12. So 12 times 1/4 is 3, but it's negative. Okay, so minus 3, and then negative 0.25 times negative 8n, so 1/4 of negative 8n, but they're both negative. Negative 1/4 here, and negative 8n here. Okay, so negative times a negative is a positive, so plus 2n. Okay, those can be tricky. If you have a calculator, you can put it in and it'll help you. Okay, so we have 2n minus 12 is equal to n minus 3 plus 2n. So these are like terms, so you can combine them. So let's combine them. I'll shift to red here. So you get 2n minus 12 is equal to n plus 2n, 3n minus 3. Okay, now we want the variables on one side and the numbers on the other. So subtract 2n minus 2n. Those go to 0. You have minus 12 is equal to 3 minus 2n is n minus 3. Okay, now we want to get the 3 to the other side, so you add 3, add 3. Those go to 0, and you get n is equal to minus 12 plus 3 is negative 9. So there's your answer there. And that corresponds with G right there, negative 9. It's always nice when the answer you get happens to be one of the answer choices. When you're doing a gridable, you have to say, well, I sure hope it's right, and then fill in the grid. Okay, let's look at one more example. Which value of x makes the equation 0.75 and so forth true? Same thing. All you're doing is solving for x, and this is multiple choice. So you notice again you have distribution on both sides. So 0.75 times x is 0.75x. 0.75 times plus 20. So 0.75 is the same as 3/4. So 3/4 of 20 is 15. Is equal to 2, which is all by itself here, plus 0.5x, 0.5 times x, plus 0.5x, and then minus, because of that minus sign right there, 0.5 times 2, so 1/2 of 2 is 1. Oops, that's an x. Minus 1. Okay, so now let's combine like terms, because we can combine those two here. So we get 0.75x plus 15 is equal to 2 minus 1 is 1 plus 0.5x. Okay, let's get the variables on one side and the numbers on the other. So I told you I like to subtract the smaller from the bigger, so I'm going to subtract 0.5x minus 0.5x, and 0.75 minus 0.5 is 0.25x plus 15, because, oops, that's an ugly 15. That just comes down, and that 1 just comes down. So is equal to 1, and 0.5x minus 0.5x is just 0, so those go away. So let me rewrite this so it looks clearer. You got 0.25x plus 15 is equal to 1. So let's get the numbers to the other side. Minus 15, minus 15. Those cancel, so you get 0.25x is equal to negative 14. Okay? Now, to get rid of that 0.25, you have to, it's because it's a multiplier, you have to divide it by 0.25, which means you have to divide this by 0.25. That 0.25 divided by 0.25 is 1, so you get 1x, but you don't have to write the 1 if it is a 1. You can just say x is equal to 14 divided by 0.25, or 14 divided by, negative 14 divided by 1/4, which is the same as negative 14 times 4. So equals negative 56. So go back to red here. X is equal to negative 56. lo and behold, there it is. And that's how you do those types of problems.